Hello everybody. Well, everybody loves the fun of the fair, don't they? We're going to take you around a very popular fairground at Folly Farm in Wales. Going to show you some of the various rides and amusements that you find not only there but at most of the fairgrounds that are still around this country. This country's always been noted for its fairgrounds, and I remember just as a child, and that was a long time ago, watching the fair arrive in our neighbouring town. And well, we weren't all that well off then and couldn't afford the rides that people can now, but it was enjoyable and quite a novelty. And now you go around to the various rallies and shows, and there's always the fairground, always the same attraction for young and old alike. This particular fair is very fortunate. It's enclosed, therefore the British climate doesn't bother it too much. Here at Folly Farm, it's owned by the famous Williams family, and they started off back in about 1988 by opening up their milking parlour, and their working farm was such an interest to everybody and a success that they decided to collect other things. And here we start by having a look at the carousel. The carousel here is just a children's ride, and carousel is an American name. Here, when the big uns have the ride on what you'll see later, we know it as the gallopers. And here you see you pay 1 token per person. These rides were designed to be ridden for a penny or 4pence back in the old days, but now you have to buy your tokens to go on them. But this is always the famous ride that kiddies love, just sitting on either a cockerel or a horse or whatever there was there, mainly cocks and horses, and all these wonderful hand-carved bits of woodwork. An exciting day, and as I say, kids love them now, despite all their computerized machinery they have. They enjoy them the same now as they always did. One noted thing about our British gallopers and carousels is they travel clockwise, whereas if you go over to America, you'll find you're traveling the other way. Another main attraction, of course, to these things is the wonderful paintwork, and there's still quite a few members of the show family, the show folk. They're great people. They often do their own sign writing and capable of making these wonderful exhibits. Here we have the roundabout, another kiddies' enjoyable little ride. Here, your particular child will choose whatever vehicle he wants to drive around. And there's a good variety, as you will see. Perhaps some of you older ones would like to drive a bus or perhaps a steamroller, but sorry, you've got to wait and watch on this one. Not too old-fashioned this, is it? That's a real Grand Prix bike if ever I saw one. Seeing the replica there of the old Showman's engine reminds me of the days when they used the Burrows and the Fowlers, etc., the big engines used to pull these rides to and from each show and power them while they were at the show with the huge generators on the front. What a wonderful sight and what a wonderful smell. And of course, for the horse lovers, and amongst the youngsters, I'm sure there are many. Not such a common sight even on our roads nowadays, the motorbike and sidecar, but brings back pleasant memories to my young married days when cars were too much to afford. Certainly a wonderful day out for all ages. I'm sure that no matter what age you are, you can remember these days when those organs were playing, sometimes from the centre of the ride, a sound that stays in our ears forever. Getting up to date here with The Simpsons. I recall these rides more in the days of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, etc. But of course, we've got to keep up to date now with the present cartoons, haven't we? Very ornate booth there that was being used for collecting the money, etc. But here we have a very traditional, patriotic lion with a flag on the front. And look at that wonderful carving there. You'd have a job to find somebody to build one of these with that ornate amount of fixtures. Yes, this really looks old and original. A lot of craftsmen in our country then. Just remember that back when I was a kid, some 60 odd years ago, that it was very rare for us to see such beauty in woodwork and painting, living in a small village. And when we did actually go to a fair to see all this bright paintwork, it was just a big thrill. Whereas I think nowadays, with so much cinema and television, it doesn't sort of hit the children quite the same way as it used to hit us. Here we've got the mini waltzer. See why it's called a waltzer. Those of you who've done a waltz on a ballroom floor, of course. Here you can sit down and do one to the sound of lovely music. Here we go, waltzing around. I hope they haven't had too many ice creams. Could have an adverse effect. Shutting back the power. Mainly these small rides would be powered by electricity, but that electricity on the old fairgrounds years ago would have been generated by the dynamos on the steam engines, and they kept steaming away all evening, late into the night. Nice array of rocking horses, and of course Muffin the mule. He was well remembered by a lot of the children here and the parents. Everybody loves an old steam engine, don't they? Well, here's something that we always found interesting and exciting. Something to make the young teenage girls shriek. Remember it so well at the pier of our nearby seaside at Weston-super-Mare, where they had the ghost train. I always remember those shrieks and peals of laughter. I don't think they really scared us. We just pretended to be, perhaps, but it's great fun. Wonderful to be able to relive those moments here. Here, these clever artists have captured an atmosphere in a rather sinister, amusing way. Well, there they are, lined up on the ghost train. Pensive expressions on their face, thinking, well, shall I go in? There's no option. You're on your way. I wasn't scared, he said. There's a brave lad. Of course, we girls, we were very bored, you say. Now we have the sideshows where you try and win a prize, try and win something. It's always a challenge. We used to arrive at the fairground and change our sixpence for a pile of old pennies and try our luck. Don't ever remember coming away showing a profit. Always looks so easy too. But it's the fun of it, isn't it? There's the traditional coconut shy. And I think back the number of times, 3 balls for a penny. I used to throw the 3 balls, and I don't think I ever did hit a coconut. Strange thing, really, because I'm sure if I'd thrown at a window, I'd have hit it. Not that I was a window smasher, but we used to play as kids, seeing if we could hit tins off sticks. I was never one of the best of them. So, I never won me a coconut. Not a very big target, is it? You want to have a go? Another amusing sideshow. Feeding the ducks. I knew we'd draw some attention before long. All you have to do is feed the duck, and it lays its egg out the other side and hopefully lands on a winning number. I don't know how they choose these numbers, but they don't come up too often. But it's the fun of it. And you never know, when you do win, away you go, clutching your prize, your own cuddly little duck. Here we are. This is another amusement that I remember so well on the pier at Weston-super-Mare, the Hall of Mirrors. But here, to Folly Farm, they've got their own funny mirrors. A great laugh, this. If you can go through here and come out the other end without a laugh, well then there's something the matter with your sense of humour. They're enjoying themselves. Our cameraman was having a darn good laugh in here, and I pointed out to him, of course, that he was looking in a plain mirror. But nevertheless, we enjoyed it. The first ride that greets you when you arrive at this fairground are the chairplanes. The original rides of this type had model Zeppelin airships hanging on change for the riders. Then the much more practical hanging chairs came into fashion and are now universally used. These particular chairplanes were built by the German firm of Gotha back in the early 20s. And they were originally owned by Jimmy Bond from Hampstead Heath, London. There was an East Anglian showman, Sam Manning, travelled them then from 1962 till about 1985. Then they were sold to a West Country showman, David Smart, eventually arriving here at Folly Farm. Another of our prize-winning beat the clock sideshows. You want an awful big handful of pennies when you go around these places, but and they soon go because you get taken up with the atmosphere of the whole thing, the music and the rides and the laughter. It's a lovely atmosphere at Folly Farm. Jacko the Clown's been here too, look, with his bike. I wonder what tricks he got up to in his day. Certainly a fine collection of fairground memorabilia here. Memories of the world's smallest travelling circus. And bring back old memories. Stop me and buy you on the walls ice cream man. Remember those halfpenny fruit flavoured ices? Remember sucking them and they used to run all down your chin? Could never afford the top me chalk ice. The miles the old salesman used to cycle on these old bikes. Happy memories. And then the speedway, another well-known ride. This particular ride, the Coronation Speedway, was very popular as far back as 1880. They were based on the shape of the Loch Ness Monster. Featured wooden motorbikes and other side-by-side rides. This particular ride is still very much in its original design. The last owner before the ride came to Folly Farm was Harry Wigfield, who travelled the ride to steam traction engine rallies from 1977 up until 1997. Of course, the paintings have been updated to more modern planes and motorbikes from its original state when there were old biplanes painted on there. Still the same old bikes that I remember on the rides. Nice advantage here with side-by-side chairs where the family can sit together and you can grab hold of mum's hand. Of course, when you've got a macho kid like that, he'd rather get on the motorbike, wouldn't he? Boys will be boys. I'm not scared, Mum. And away you go.
Okay, so there's a delay. Are you ready? I won't say more than money this time. Are you ready? I'm on site now. Here we go.
Remember when we were kids riding on the motorbikes all night, trying to work out how fast we were going. And I'm sure we were convinced we were doing 80 miles an hour at times, but now a more mature look at it tends to bring the speed back down to a realistic number.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please remain seated now. To the red columns, wait the police stop. Thank you.
And all too soon, it comes to an end. Can we go again, Dad? No. Let's go and find something else. Ah, what have we here? Now this should be fun. The old Sideshow games. What a fine collection there is here. We used to put a penny in the slot in those days. You can still see the penny sign marked up in your top right corner now. And here is where you would test your personality. First of all, you switch in your age and your birth month. And of course, what sex you are. Put your penny in. And then move on after you've found out what sort of person you are. It might be too embarrassing to tell your friends. And then you have a go at these where you click the little lever down at the side and swing the balls up around and land them in those slots you see up in the middle there and see how many you could score. Great fun. Great skill. Great prizes. Well, it's worth a try. Slightly different layout, but the same old machine. You just put your money in and down come the balls and you flick them all the way around. And this is one to test your grip. This is one you had to try when you had a young lady on your arm, just to show her, oh, what a tough individual you were. Or not. Well, how well do you think you'd have got on? God, she'd love you if you managed to hit it up to terrific, wouldn't she? Superb collection of these old penny in the slot machines here, and very nostalgic to walk around and look at them, let alone try them out. What have we here? What the Butler saw. Very tame compared with today's modern television, but in those days, what a thrill. My mum and dad wouldn't let me put a penny in them when we were on Western Pier on one occasion. And you can see why, can't you? How daring. It was always the butler who saw these things. Not a very high-paid job, but my God, what perks they had. Oh, and this is that wonderful crane that picks up prizes. And I remember being at Brighton on one occasion when I put a halfpenny in one of these to have a go, and it didn't stop. It kept going for about 10 minutes till the attendant come along and stopped me. I still hadn't won anything. Another one where you get your fortune told by placing your hand on there. Madame Zola will tell your fortune. Perfectly true, of course. Got an honest face. You walk away with your little card with your fortune printed on there. Win a Chew. I used to love our chewing gum. One of those long flat strips you get now, they were lovely little tablets that we used to chew away. I remember a machine we used to have in our local shop where every third halfpenny that went in, you had two. We were always hoping that the two unfortunates had been there before us. And this is a lovely reminder of the Grand National where you have your two horses and you go there and you wind those little wheels down like billy-o to propel your horse along faster than your mate. The wear and tear on those handles must have been fairly terrific. They were very well made. Spinning them around, seeing if you could win the Grand National, all for a penny. Yes, I'm sure you youngsters, if you go here, you would enjoy it. And the old people, well, the nostalgia is something else. Now we have the Dodgem track. Now, I suppose this was always a favourite, especially for we young boys, long before we had a licence to drive, who wanted to convince ourselves that we were potential racing car drivers. Some rather nice looking cars here. But it won't surprise you that this particular type of ride originated in America. Originally they didn't have actual cars, they were sort of open-fronted things like the horse-drawn carriages. And then of course they were horseless. They had other farmyard designs, but it eventually turned into the little cars that we see today around there, and what fun they are. It's supposed to be Dodgems, but I think the object is to go and drive into somebody and belt them off the circuit. And one English firm that was associated with this Dodgem ride from the 30s to the 50s was Supercar from Warwick. Always was, and I think always will be, the great favourite among the Fairground riders. This particular ride was made in the 1940s, known for 30 years by Frank Bailey of Clacton in Essex. And it was operated for a while by Ted Harrison of the pier at Clacton. And also spent some time at Butlin's holiday camp. It was bought by Folly Farm from the David Jones of Cambridge, so there's quite a few bodies have sat in those seats and quite a few people enjoyed their rides around the famous Dodgems we see here at Folly Farm. Now we're on a particular ride called the Lakin Skid. Got to be a little bit more brave to go on this one, because it's sort of fast and noisy and swirls you around quite a bit. One of the favourites during the 1930s. Not seen so often. This ride originally belonged to the famous showman William Nicholas. And had a couple of changes of ownership. He went to Peter Manning from East Anglia. And then we come along to the Caterpillar ride. The particular Caterpillar ride arrived here for the 2001 season. What a beautiful bit of airbrush paintwork. Owned by Jimmy Manning, who travelled to various fairs. Beautiful paintwork done by very established fairground painter Mark Gill. It was repainted in brighter traditional colours before first opening at Folly Farm. There it is, that huge caterpillar. What a thrill. But in my opinion, the most beautiful and romantic of all rides are the gallopers. Wherever I go to any show around, these are the things that I admire and love to see most of all, especially late at night when they're illuminated, hopefully with a traction engine standing alongside them. There's something about the gallopers that thrills me more than the others. The first use of steam power to drive a set of gallopers was probably in Germany around about 1850 and later on in England in the early 60s. Before then, of course, the rides were much smaller and had to be turned by hand. But with the steam power in the centre to drive them, well, they were made much bigger, much more attractive. The roundabout ride that these were based on can go right the way back to the 1600s and 1700s, where it would only take about 4 or 6 adults. But now, I don't know how many you can get on this particular set, but it's quite a large number. Here at Folly Farm, these gallopers was the last 3 abreast set built by Savages, delivered to the first owner in 1922. He was Chris Johnson, a showman from Wakefield. Sound of its own organ in the middle is wonderful. And here, not only the youngsters, but the mums just love to pay up and get astride one of those horses and ride around. It's wonderful. These particular gallopers took part in the Festival of Britain back in 1952-3. And after that, they were at Clarence Pier at Southsea. They arrived here at Folly Farm in 1999 as a centrepiece for all the attractions. Every one of these horses, except one, are carved wood. Might be interesting to find the one that isn't. One with a plastic tail. A lot of parts of this old ride are very original. A wonderful sight to behold. Of course, when you had a ride on the gallopers, you had to remember the name of your horse. I'm sure most of the kids did.
With me is John Mitchell from Worthing in Sussex. John, this particular model has had quite an interesting background, hasn't it?
Well, it's been involved in fairground transport and accommodation since 1947, when it was first built by Abbey Coachworks in Dagenham, Essex. It's been all around fairgrounds. I don't know the actual owners. I've only owned the vehicle for the last 18 months and still trying to trace the history of it. We're in the process of restoring it at the moment, and an awful lot of work has been done, particularly to the interior, and we're just about getting there at the moment.
So really then, you needed quite a lot to get it up to the standard we see it in today?
Yes, it wasn't really usable in the condition that it was when I first bought it. We had to pretty well gut the inside and do a lot of structural work. But as I say, you know, we're getting there now. It's looking quite presentable, and we're enjoying it most weeks during the summertime.
John, let's talk about cost for a moment. What would one of these have cost way back in the mid-40s?
Well, back in that time, they would cost, this size would have been about £1,500, and by comparison to a house, a small house like 2 up and 2 down would have been about £500. So it would have been far more expensive to buy one of these than a house. Yeah.
Now it's got the classic living accommodation attached to the back. Tell us a little bit about that, if you could.
Well, it's divided into 3 rooms. It has a kitchen. There is a stove, like a coal and log burning stove, which is also an oven in the kitchen. And in the saloon, it has another stove, which is primarily for heating or just boiling the odd kettle. Everything inside is wood panelled, as you probably saw, and then at the far end there is a kitchen, a bedroom, which is a very compact bedroom, and everything fits like a glove.
John, to coin one of Lloyd Grossman's phrases, if I could, who would have lived in a house like this?
Well, it would have been not so much a fairground owner, but the fairground ride owner would have lived in here, together with his family, of course.
Yeah. Now, moving to the front here, we've got a 19, I think, believe I'm right in saying, a 1959 Scammell.
Yes.
What's the background to that?
Well, it's a Scammell Highwayman. As you said, it was in 1959. It's got a Gardner 10.5 litre diesel engine in it. It's got air brakes, which were just about coming into being at that time. Excuse me. Originally, it was an Arctic unit for a chemical company in Stockport, and it was used for about 10 years for haulage, and then it laid in a scrapyard for about 20 years, and then somebody bought it, started a restoration and gave up on it, and then it was taken over from there, and it was restored in 1988 into its present condition.
Now, driving one of these must be quite hairy, I would think.
Well, the brakes and steering are not as you would find on modern commercial vehicles. You need to allow yourself a bit more time to stop. And the steering, of course, there's no power steering. It's quite heavy, so it's good exercise driving them. And because of the speed, you have to allow yourself plenty of time.
John, I see you've got your Scammell hat on there, the peaked hat. Is there an owners' club as such?
Yes, there is a Scammell register. Yeah, I belong to the register, and it's a nice thing to belong to, because you get to know all the other members that have got similar vehicles, and if you have any problems with them, you know, they'll always help you out.
Yeah. I notice you've brought one extra member of the family along, Rocky.
Oh, yes.
How does he find being out on the road?
Oh, he loves it. He's a little Scammell dog. He is. He loves Scammells in particular. He'd spend all day in the cab, and he's a well-known feature around the rally fields now. He is.
Great, John. Thanks very much for showing us around. It's been most interesting finding out more background to the fairground scene, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of the show here.
Yes, I will. Yes, thank you very much.
We found out all of them actually through World's Fair.
Well, it's time for a little musical interlude now at today's show, and it's the turn of street organs, and Ted Chalton from Epsom in Surrey is going to tell us a little bit more. Ted, what was your first interest in these organs?
I first attended a traction engine rally at White Waltham about 35 years ago, and the organs were the things that attracted me, and having a small family I couldn't afford one at the time. When I grew up I began looking, and we were really looking for a barrel piano, but since a barrel piano wasn't forthcoming, we started to have a look for street pianos, which is street organs, I beg your pardon, which is what we've got now, and this is a fairly recent one, about 3 or 4 years old, and this was made by Alan Pell, the organ builder from Lincoln.
And where did you actually get to know about them in the first place?
We actually saw them advertised in World's Fair, and we sort of dashed along and listened to them and fell in love with them and played them, and bought them at the time.
Well, for the non-connoisseurs amongst us, perhaps you could explain how one of these street organs works.
It's a bit difficult. There's a tracker bar here, which has got a series of holes in. It's difficult. I can't show you. Perhaps I can. Can I just wind it back a minute? There we are. Now, what happens when the paper music passes over the holes? It collapses a small air motor inside a reservoir inside the organ, and allows the air then to pass to that particular note. And it's a vacuum system, purely and simply. That's as near as I can put it in lay terms. It's just a question of letting air through and collapsing a motor, really, and then allowing the pipes to play.
Now there's another one actually just to our right here. It's got a name Rose on the front of it. What's the history behind this particular one?
We used to take an old lady to traction engine with us, and she died unfortunately a few years ago, and her name was Rose. So we, in actual fact, thought we would like to name this after her. So we had the little plaque made and put Rose. The odd thing is, if I can show you, this one here. If you look on here, we bought this from Alan Pell, and a fortnight after we got it home, we noticed that, in fact, the barge has got Rose written on it as well. Oh, right. And it was just purely coincidence. There was nothing sort of organised about it at all. It's rather nice, really, and it's a nice memory to the old lady.
Is Rose actually set up for us to hear some music?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we could hear a little bit of the tune.
It's on my way.
Well, a wonderful performance there from Rose. What's your wife's name, by the way?
Betty.
Betty. Thank you for that, Betty. Ted, perhaps we can move over to the furthest street organ here now.
Yeah.
What's the story behind this one? This looks a lot older, obviously.
This is, as far as we know, it's between 1900 and 1916. More than that we don't know. It was found in a children's home in Luton, and it was painted pink and blue at the time.
Yes.
It's been stripped off by a chap named Terry France in Chichester, who part restored it, and we acquired it from him, and we've done a fair bit of work to it, and it plays reasonably well, but it is, as I say, it's its age. It's 90 years old, and after a day in the sun it sounds 90 years old, unfortunately, and but it just, if you come in the mornings when it's a bit damp, it sounds much better. But would you like me to play?
Well, we will in a moment.
Yeah.
Could you actually put a value on this thing?
Well, anything between £3,500 to £4,000 up to £9,000. That's all I can say. It's only really worth what somebody will pay, but we know they go from £3,500 to £9,000. But this one would probably be about £3,500 to £4,000, because it's not the greatest on earth, but it plays.
Ted, before we close, the central panel there has got a very interesting story. It's one that I've always wanted to find out. What's the significance between the organ grinder and the monkey? We've all heard about the story.
I can show you here. This box here was where the monkey was kept at night, because the organ grinders were very poor people, and they slept in stables by and large. So they popped the monkey in the box, lifted the box out, and then up into the hayloft, and they both slept up there together. But during the day, the monkey was very important in as much as he was the chap who collected the money. And if you don't get any money, you can't keep laying, you know, you just die if you can't. And farthings were very important to organ grinders in those days, you know, when a penny bought a lot of stuff. All right?
And there is actually a monkey on the back there as well, isn't there?
I'm afraid he's not a real one, but the RSPCA wouldn't like that, I don't think, anyway.
Well, Ted, thanks very much for talking to us. We've actually run out of time. We'll have a little burst from the street organ in just a second. Yeah. And that is all, in fact, from this year's event. We hope very much that you've enjoyed it. We certainly have. Until the next time, from all of us, it's goodbye. Play us out, Ted.
I've enjoyed this, reminiscing over the various fairgrounds and fairground pieces. It brings back lots of happy memories. I hope it has for you too. To me, it'll always be memories of the old time fair, when it was a once a year novelty, or sometimes even less than that. Now you can go to various shows any weekend in the year and have a ride on a fairground. Why not? You do it and enjoy yourself. I hope you've enjoyed looking at these various rides and come back for more. Bye for now.